fast it was traveling, but I could literally feel its vibrations. I didn't know when it would hit. I just knew that I couldn't get off the damn street, and one day the bus would come. My original neurologist told me I only had 10 years left to work, so I entered the 90s by working compulsively, taking every job blindly. I had a lot of work to do and a short time to do it. So one of the string of movies I signed on to do took me to the countryside outside Wellington, New Zealand, with the director Peter Jackson, who did Lord of the Rings, and I got it between masterpieces. Suddenly, I had an epiphany. What I wanted most was to be near my family. I didn't want to be flying all over the world. What the hell was I doing in a sheep pasture in the South Pacific? So I finished the movie, went home to train to see my children, which now included twin daughters, and decided to stay close, returning to television. Gary Goldberg and I developed a show called Spin City. We shot it in New York, where I live. It was great to be back in television comedy, and I loved doing the show, but I was no longer hiding symptoms from myself or those closest to me. I spent the first few seasons of Spin City hiding my PD from the audience. This became untenable. The problem was this: I was optimistic enough to think that the audience would still laugh even though they knew I was sick. But eventually I decided to just get it out there. I talked to Barbara Walters and was on the cover of People magazine. And time before Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, if you wanted to get a secret out, you tell Barbara Walters and People magazine. At first I thought, what have I done? This was the biggest mistake of my life. I immediately had second thoughts, but I couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. But about the third day, something cool started to happen. The story in the papers and on TV and Entertainment Tonight was no longer about Michael J. Fox, but about Parkinson's. A real conversation around the country had developed. Around this time, I began spending hours on the internet lurking at various AOL chat sites. Remember those AOL chat sites? Second thoughts about going public were fading as I realized I was now part of a community. I eventually testified in front of Congress without meds and said, I'm facing challenges in my 40s that most people won't expect until their 70s and 80s, but with advances in research and I have every hope within the 50s, I'll dance at my children's weddings. Not long after I let the audience know about my situation on the show, my role in Spin City started to feel less comfortable. My character, Deputy Mike Flaherty, did not have Parkinson's, so hiding from that guy had its challenges. At the same time, I wanted a different role, advocating for better treatments for patients while helping to accelerate a cure. So in 2000, I went into semi-retirement from my acting career and launched the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. I didn't want to call it the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. I wanted to call it PD Cure, but my wife said, pedicure? So to help create our foundation's business model, I was smart enough to find people smarter than me, which as it turned out was depressingly easy. And we put together a board of directors and a leadership team that included both Wall Street executives and scientists. We supported our staff with a research advisory board of experts in neurology and movement disorders at the best clinics and labs around the world. Within months, we began ordering grants. We took risks on projects that the NIH wasn't funding. We were looking for the small ideas that led to bigger ideas. We also began strategically investing in accelerating drug development, helping farmers so that they could see a way to success if we took on the risky earlier trials. We're gaining a reputation as problem solvers. Today, the foundation has a full-time staff of 120 and a network of scientists all over the globe focused on a cure. We funded over $500 million in research. Believe me, I'm the last person who expected to be up here talking about speeding drug development, but I take pride in knowing that our organization is helping create a new blueprint for how cures are sought. It's a fulfilling job, but I'm looking forward to being unemployed. Speaking of which, it turns out the original neurologist of mine was wrong after all. After a few years after retiring, I started to take some guest roles like Boston Legal, Scrubs, and Curb Your Enthusiasm. I found that I could still do it. And as Lewis Canning on The Good Wife, I got to show that you can be disabled and still be an asshole. It wasn't the first time, though. One of my favorite jobs came a few years ago when I got a call from my friend Dennis Leary, the star of the series Rescue Me. Dennis said he had a role in the show he wanted me to consider. It was a character named Dwight, a bitter, angry, lonely, pill-popping, alcoholic, sarcastic, sex-addicted misanthrope. And he was a paraplegic. Dennis, I asked, what part of this guy made you sit up and say, let's call him Mike Fox? Never mind all that other stuff. How am I supposed to play paralyzed? You realize I can't stop moving. This guy's in a wheelchair and I'm a human whirligig. And Dennis said, that'd be great. We've all heard casting against type, this is ridiculous. Soon enough, though, as I studied the role, I quickly understood why Dennis wanted me on the show. I might not have those feelings, but I could get in touch with him. In fact, I've known Dwight intimately these past 20 years. He's the choice I didn't make. Dwight is the dark place one can go when you don't acknowledge the truth and are trapped by it. Dwight is the rage of first hearing the diagnosis and then never going past it. Yeah, I wasn't Dwight, but I know Dwight. I know all about loss, I know about life rearranged, purpose re-examined, and the chaos of fate. I've been boxing that shadow for decades. If I spent my time wallowing, I could have easily been Dwight. I often say that Parkinson's is a gift, and some people are skeptical about that. True, it's a gift that keeps on taking, but it's a gift. I want to just add one thing. The other night, I was asked by Chris Martin of Coldplay to go on stage at Giants, what used to be Giants Stadium, and play Johnny Be Good. And I did, and what was so fun about that, besides playing in front of 80,000 people, which was making me crap myself, was that I thought, I mean, I did it for selfish reasons, I did it for fun, but the after effect of it is that I see in social media that it empowers people with Parkinson's and other disabilities to just go for it. Just what happens when I talk about things that aren't in the script. I get emotional. The gift is resilience and optimism, and recognizing that every circumstance provides choices. Several months ago, Time Magazine had a cover story about optimism and resiliency, and this quote by Dr. Stephen Southern of the Yale School of Medicine stood out to me. Very few highly resilient people are strong in and of themselves. You need support. Everything that's good in my life traces back to my children and to Tracy. My kids are now 27, two 21-year-olds and a 14-year-old. That's time travel. Tracy doesn't project. She doesn't nudge me in a certain caretaking style that works for her. She takes me as I am on a day-to-day basis. She plays the cards that were dealt each day and is wise enough to know we generally get a good hand. But she would quickly tell you, probably with a laugh, that the greatest challenge she faces is not having a Parkinson's patient for a husband, it's having me for a husband. And I just happen to be a Parkinson's patient. And she busts me all the time, sometimes just with a look. Like the one she gave me when I was late on yet another deadline for Always Looking Up, my book. I came out of the office and she was coming out of the bedroom, and before she could even say anything, I blurted out, "I'm never gonna finish this book on optimism." To which Tracy said, "You know you said that out loud." And there's a story that my daughters get tired of hearing, but it's one I pull out whenever the occasion arises. I mean, I have two 21-year-old daughters. They're great now. When they were 14 or 13 or 12, they're a lot of work. So I would always pull this out. Something I found in the New York Times one day when they were little. All four of my kids now know it by heart. There was a story in the Times about a young woman in Mozambique, and her village was hit by a massive flood. There was churning, roiling water rising fast and just shooting through the village and carrying everything